Hey, real quick, before we dive into today's episode, if you've been feeling like your brand needs a little love, but you're not quite sure where to start, I have just the tool you need. The Standout Brand Audit Bot is an AI-powered guided audit that shows you exactly what's working, what's not, and how to strengthen your brand using my proven Standout brand system. In 10 minutes or less, you'll walk away with clear next steps to move your brand forward with purpose. It's completely free. Just head to the show notes to grab the link and get started. When you first started your business, you probably did not realize that not only did you need to be an expert in the thing that you do, you also need to be an expert in marketing. And that is a really difficult realization and thing to master for many online business owners and entrepreneurs. The ever-changing online marketing landscape, coupled with the fact that we are just constantly inundated with competing advice left and right whenever we open up social media or go on YouTube or look for ideas of how to market our business, makes it really, really hard to know what the right thing to do is. Something that I have found recently over the last few years is that sometimes it's the most unconventional marketing tactics that seem to work the best. So I have asked 4 online business owners what is the most successful unconventional marketing tactic that they've used in their business. And there was a super interesting common thread between all of their answers that I was honestly not really expecting. If you are looking for a fresh perspective on marketing and some reassurance that you don't need to follow the trends and do what all the famous online business coaches are telling you to do, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of 2, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. To prepare for this episode, I reached out to 4 online service providers and asked them to answer 4 questions for me. What is the weirdest or most unconventional marketing tactic that's worked for you in your business lately? How did you think of it or decide to try it? What have the results been around this tactic, and how has it changed your perspective on marketing and running your business? First, we're going to hear from Arielle Nissenblatt. Arielle is a podcast strategist, writer, and community builder who spends most of her time helping people discover great podcasts and helping creators make theirs better. Arielle's unconventional marketing tactic centers around being super, super direct in your marketing, which I, as somebody who does not have time to beat around the bush, really appreciated. Let's hear what she had to say.
The most off the beaten path or weirdest or the most unconventional marketing tactic that I've used lately, and I've been using this for years, but I've only put words to it recently, is to just tell the people exactly what I want them to do. It seems so obvious, but a lot of the writing that we see on the internet is trying to get people to do something. We want them to heed one of our calls to action, and we're trying to be sneaky with it using marketing language that we've learned, trying to point out the pain point, and then trying to exploit that pain point, and then offer them just the exact right thing at the exact right moment so that hopefully they'll convert and become a paid customer for us or subscribe to our newsletter or listen to our podcast or whatever it is. And I try those things every so often, and it works from time to time. But now I find that on social media and the other places where I'm directly interfacing with my audience, the most effective but unconventional thing that I do that makes a difference marketing-wise is just saying exactly what I want. For example, sometimes I will put out a LinkedIn post, and at the top of the LinkedIn post, where according to the conventional wisdom of the internet, you're supposed to say something hooky, maybe a question that's supposed to get people to click more. I usually say something like, the purpose of this post is to get you to subscribe to my newsletter, or I am writing this post to you, comma, dear reader, comma, or dear scroller of LinkedIn, because I want you to check out the episode that I just put out with this person because it's going to be the perfect listen for your afternoon. And I find that often these posts do well because they are very different from the rest of the posts out there. And they might even be considered weird and ill-advised, but I don't care because it works for me. Deciding to try this tactic was a gradual process for me. Like I said, when I first started out in the podcast space, mostly as a curator, I did not know what I was doing. I was a recent college grad and I had not taken marketing courses. I had studied geography in college, and it really took me a while to hone my voice and to define my audience. And I'm still defining my audience. And I think that that's a big part of this is testing and iterating, guessing and checking and seeing what's resonating and then doubling down on the things that work. A good deal of my clients have found me through LinkedIn. I get a lot of DMs on LinkedIn from people who want to have a chat. Sometimes those chats are clearly spam and I ignore them, but a good deal of them are real people looking for real help when it comes to podcast marketing or newsletter writing or a bunch of the other things that I write about. And often those calls convert to either a one-off consulting gig or something long-term. And often when I speak to people, the first thing that they cite is my LinkedIn, that I am very upfront and obvious. And I think that upfrontness and that obviousness gives off trustworthiness because it gives the impression that I'm not hiding anything and I'm putting it all out there, this marketing tactic. And I kind of feel weird calling it a tactic because it's so unintentional. But this tactic is something that I recommend to other people who are looking to grow on LinkedIn or looking to get something specific out of their time on social media. Often we forget that there are real people who are scrolling on social media, and those real people have social media consumption habits, probably similar to your own social media consumption habits. So you can probably put yourself in the shoes of those people and figure out what is going to make them stop scrolling and what in your post is going to make them want to respond to something. So for me, it all goes back to what do I want somebody to get out of the time that they're spending reading what I'm putting out on the internet? And I'm going to try to be in community with them, and I'm going to try to be in conversation with them as well.
I loved Arielle's answer to this question. And as she was talking about the example of the LinkedIn post, I was totally thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if somebody would just come out and say, I want you to subscribe to my newsletter, I want you to listen to this podcast episode, I would trust them more. Exactly like Arielle's saying, because I don't feel like they're trying to be sneaky or like play games or, like I said earlier, beat around the bush. So I love the advice of just telling people exactly what you want them to do and being direct. We are so busy and there's so much information online that by not wasting our time and just getting to the point, I think you're doing your audience a big favor. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Arielle. Next, we are going to hear from Abigail Alvarez. Her Threads bio says that she is a content strategist and podcast editor who also talks about politics because I've got to use that history BA. So to that point, Abigail's unconventional marketing tactic is all about being real and being human on social media and telling people how you really think and feel about things. And in a world where sometimes we don't know if there's a real human behind the keyboard anymore, I think that that is such valuable advice. So let's hear what Abigail has to say.
Being more human shouldn't have to be an unconventional marketing tactic, but in our age of AI, sounding like a real person behind your brand is a great way to earn credibility and connect with a real audience. I didn't do this strategy on purpose. I joined Threads in July of 2023 when it first launched, and this is my personal account. At the time that I created it, I wasn't planning on becoming a freelancer. That was a dream more than it was a goal. Connecting with like-minded entrepreneurs and people who were showing up authentically showed me that I don't have to be posting 12 Instagram reels a week or showing up on YouTube in order to actually build a business. Connected with one of my most aligned clients through Threads by being more human. One of my podcast editing clients tagged me in a thank you post, which was so sweet. And this was the first time that this other client had ever seen me online. During our initial call, she said that she spent 10-15 minutes scrolling through my threads, and that's how she decided to work with me. Everything I had been posting on Threads up to that point was political, and we were able to connect because she knew that we could agree on some very, very core beliefs. Getting results from being myself and sharing the things that I genuinely think and believe online has changed my perspective on marketing and running a business because it's told me that I can actually do that. One main block for me with starting a freelance business was that I did not have the energy or capacity to ever film a ton of Instagram reels. That was just not going to happen. I can't even handle TikTok. But a text-based platform where I get to connect with like-minded entrepreneurs, I get to find my ideal clients by showing up as the more business version. Of course, I'm going to talk about the things that I do. I'm going to talk about Pinterest. I'm going to talk about podcast editing and how to make your business more sustainable in this crazy context that we currently live in.
Is your brand feeling a little off? Like your visuals, messaging, and your overall vibe just are not lining up with where your business is headed? You probably don't need another pretty logo. You actually need a solid strategy behind your brand. That's exactly what we'll build together inside the Standout Brand Strategy session, a one-on-one deep dive into your brand foundation so that you can finally show up with clarity, consistency, and confidence. And if you're thinking about working with Spect & Co. on branding or web design, this is your first step for every single project that we do together. Clients who have gone through this process have tripled their audience size, doubled their revenue, and raised their rates by 30% or more. Use the link in the show notes to book your session, and don't forget to enter code SFBPOD at checkout to save $100. So I loved Abigail's point about shared values in who you decide to work with. I think that's been a hot topic of conversation lately, and I do think there's a lot of nuance around it. In Abigail's case, she said, I landed a client because my beliefs and my values were clearly laid out in my Threads content, and that client who found me immediately knew that we were aligned and she could trust me, and that's great for her. And I think that that is such a good example about why, even though it's hard, it's so important to put yourself out there and be really unapologetically yourself online. And I know that sometimes that can feel scary, and I know that we all have our reasons for how much we do and don't want to share about our personal lives. But I think in a space that's being inundated with AI and bots and humans even who are disingenuous, I really think that showing up as your true self and not apologizing for that is more important than ever. People hire people, and they're not going to feel like they know you as a person if you keep that hidden online. Next, we're going to hear from Janae. Janae is a fractional CMO and marketing strategist. She translates her clients' marketing love languages across multiple platforms on and offline. Janae's is one of my favorite and by far the most weird and interesting unconventional marketing tactic. Hers is all about singing in her content and in her communications with her clients. I'm just going to throw it to Janae and let her tell you all about this because it's hilarious and very interesting.
The weirdest or most unconventional marketing tactic that's worked for me lately has been singing, oddly enough, and bringing full theatricality into my marketing content and into my sessions with my clients. I'm a former performer. I had big Broadway dreams, and I even got so far as to make it to a callback for a Broadway tour back in the day in my former life. And I spent nearly 15 years professionally in the theater and acting space. So I spent a lot of time in that realm, and I have a musical background in my family. My parents have performed with and otherwise worked with a lot of heavy hitters back in the day. So it's in my blood. And I spent a long time kind of keeping that separate from my marketing career once I did make that pivot for fear of, not being seen as professional or not being taken seriously as an authority or, the bubbly theater to marketing girly pipeline was more prevalent than I realized. And I didn't feel like I could sit fully into my full self. Now I lean all the way into it. Now it's a non-negotiable. I'll sing on camera. I'll sing on my YouTube videos. I'll sing in my stories on Instagram. I'll sing in my sessions with my clients. I bring that energy to everything that I touch because it's me. This isn't some caricature that I created in order to be taken seriously and get clients and, let my marketing career be how I eat as opposed to, my acting career. It's not a performance for me. You know what I mean? And I know that's such an overused word nowadays, especially with the rise of generative AI, but quite literally performing was my livelihood and was such a big part of me. But having vocalizations and singing and music be how I show up is natural to me. It's second nature. So why wouldn't I infuse that into how I've chosen to make an impact and how I've chosen to help people? And it's only weird or unconventional because most of the people that I work with are not singers or performers, so it kind of catches them off guard. But it does lighten the room. It does immediately give them a sense of who I am and how we're going to move forward. And it gives other people permission to relax into themselves as well. Most of the time people laugh or think it's funny, but it's the realest to me that there will ever be. And I think it makes people trust me way, way more than if I had shown up in this crispy, like sanitized version of marketer Janae. I spent so many years trying to fit into that serious marketing strategist box. I'm still really proud of the work I did when I was doing that. But looking back, was it super duper memorable? Was it malleable to the times? Did it get to the root and the heart of the person I was working with or interacting with? If I was so scared or shy, or apprehensive to show my true self, then how is that other person going to relax into showing me their true selves? And if they're not showing me their true selves, how can I strategize around the psychology of that without it being super fake and super boring and like something that literally anybody could have done? The results or client feedback I've seen around this, I don't even want to call it a tactic because like I said, it's really just who I am. But people remember me, full stop. They remember me and they remember my work. And it, again, takes them out of the tension of creating content or marketing and selling themselves. Singing is such a great way of self-expression, regardless of if you're happy or sad or apprehensive or nervous or whatever. It gets that energy out and it helps us reshift the room and focus on what we came to do. So, in a sea of talking heads, giving the same marketing advice, especially with the rise of generative AI, I sing. It sticks. It works. It also naturally qualifies leads because the right people think it's genius. The right people get it. And the wrong people might think it's too much or kind of shy away from being on the spot of or being called to show themselves in that way or called to experience me showing myself in that way. And I don't want to work with people like that. There's no shade. Work is work and clients are clients. And I feel like I could help a wide variety of folk because I have. But I also understand the types of relationships and the inclusive, welcoming environment that I like to cultivate around marketing, which can be so stuffy and so bro-y and mean girly and weird, And prospects show up to discovery calls already bought in on my energy and my approach and not just on my credentials. It's infused into the DNA of C'est Quoi. And so they're ready to rock and roll. They know what they're in for and they're stoked for it. How has it changed my perspective on marketing and running my business? It proved me right. It proved my framework right. I literally teach people to stop marketing like somebody that they're not and to dig deeper into the psychology of why they show up the way they show up versus what their audiences actually need to hear from them and how their audiences digest and retain information, which then makes that a symbiotic relationship. It makes it a match made in heaven as opposed to this slog of talking about yourself and creating content and blah, blah, blah. It changed who finds me as well. I'm attracting clients who want bold, personality-driven strategy and nothing that's safe and generic and beige. And that alignment means better projects, fewer headaches, fewer misaligned clients, and clients who actually trust me and trust the process. And honestly is the best case study for what I'm calling the C'est Quoi method, and which is all about, if your marketing is disjointed and it's a chore and you really hate it, you've got a mismatch. You've got a mismatch there. And I think the results of me showing up authentically as my own theatrical singing self is proof of concept.
So I'm not going to lie, whenever Janae reached out to me in response to my post looking for contributors for this episode, and she said, I sing in all of my marketing, I even was like, okay, Janae, that's maybe a little weirder than what I was looking for. But I loved her explanation here of that it's not about the singing. She's not telling me, Morgan, you should sing in your marketing if that's not something that's authentic to me. It's about letting people see you for who you really are and giving them permission to show up as who they really are. I loved having such a tangible example of that. And I really appreciate Janae's insight into what a big difference this has made in her business, both in being able to show up and serve her clients better, but also attracting the right clients and repelling the wrong ones. Repelling the wrong clients is not something that I feel like we talk about in marketing enough, but there are going to be people that are very turned off by Janae singing in a YouTube video, and that's fine. We don't want those people to reach out to her and book her services because she is not the person for them. And this is such a beautiful way of doing that in a way that feels fun and aligned and authentic to her. So I hope that opened your eyes to maybe you don't need to sing, but maybe find what your thing is. And then lastly, we're going to hear from Gemma Broadstock. Gemma is a business and branding coach who puts a big emphasis on psychology in the way that she works with her clients. And you're going to see how that comes through in her unconventional marketing tactic, which is all about releasing some of the more conventional, traditional boundaries that we've been told we have to implement in business and really embracing being flexible with her clients and doing what works for them and changing gears if needed. So let's hear what Gemma had to say about her most unconventional marketing tactic.
The weirdest and most unconventional marketing tactic that's worked for me lately is that I have actually removed a lot of my boundaries. And so in the years of building my business in the early few stages, I learned from courses, other coaches, all those, pieces of content online that you have to be really boundaried in your business. And that meant really strict contracts, not letting people out of contracts, not being very lenient with people. And the whole idea being that we have to act like that in order to run a successful business, in order to scale, in order to be respected. And I will say that I just kind of went along with that, didn't really question it. And then there was an incident a few years back where I had to rearrange a session with a client and she responded really badly. I didn't even think before I sent this email that she would respond in the way that she did. I just kind of assumed that she would be understanding, that I am human and things come up in the same way that I feel like I am with other people. But actually, she was really surprised that I was rescheduling. She said some quite nasty things about my values. And so it really threw me and it made me realize I wasn't being clear on what I expect of my clients and also what my clients should expect of me. And there was this whole sense of, well, my coach is perfect and therefore she shouldn't be cancelling, she shouldn't reschedule, she should be there when I need her. And that's not what I want to be. Like, coaching should never be an emergency. As much as I don't want to ever mess my clients around and I always want to avoid cancelling and rescheduling wherever I can, it's not something I make a habit of. I am also human and I'm going to be unwell sometimes. I'm going to have family emergencies sometimes. The internet might go out. We might have a power cut. Like, so many things can happen. And I want my clients to understand that and be lenient with me in those scenarios and be understanding that I'm a human. And I figured that in order for people to see me that way, I need to make sure I'm very vocal about me seeing them that way too. And so I started talking very openly about how I encourage people to cancel their sessions with me. So this was like completely illogical and it was going against a lot of the advice at the time. But I was essentially saying, like, if you have a call scheduled with me and something comes up, like you're not very well, your kids are not well and they're off school, you're feeling really anxious and you're having panic attacks, like you've had some bad news and you just don't feel like your head's in a good place, I want you to feel comfortable and confident to contact me and say that, like, today it's not happening, like you need to reschedule. And I want you to always feel like you can put yourself first. I don't want someone to think, oh my gosh, I've got a call with Gemma and so I need to show up even though I've got a million things in my head. Like, I don't want people to feel like that. I want people to feel that they can cancel. And I won't tell clients what they can cancel for either. I don't say, you can only cancel or reschedule if you have these 1 of 5 problems. I trust my clients to know what their limits are. And I trust them to know what they would need to reschedule and cancel for. I don't question what's going on. I just trust them. So I encourage my clients to reschedule and cancel. I allow my clients to pause contracts if something, unexpected has happened and uncontrollable. I allow them to pause for a month or maybe 2 months, depending on the length of the contract that they've agreed. I'm super okay with clients leaving and coming back. Like, there's no rule around if you leave, you can't come back again for 6 months or 1 year or whatever. It's like, you can come and go as you please. I trust that you know what you need at the time. And I don't ever want clients to feel like, I'm in financial difficulty or my partner's lost their job, but oh my gosh, I need to do X, Y, and Z because I promised Gemma I will. Like, I really leave space for the humanness that's unpredictable. And actually the real benefit of that has not only been that I hope my clients really appreciate it, but I have received that same level of understanding and respect in return. My clients are completely okay if I have to reschedule. They trust that I wouldn't do it unless I needed to. They see me as human rather than just some sort of coach online who is perfect. And so I felt really supported by my clients in the way that I hope they feel supported. And actually, while people might worry, like, well, does that mean people are going to start pushing your boundaries if you don't have really strict rules? But I've actually experienced that less than ever. So when I was really strict on my boundaries, people would sometimes push them or, try and get out of contracts and things like that. But actually, since changing the way I operate and being a bit more flexible, I haven't had that at all. And so that fear of, is everybody going to take advantage, hasn't happened. And actually, I have felt so much more in alignment with the way that I operate because everything is human first, right? Like, contracts are important, don't get me wrong. And you want people to pay you and respect your boundaries and all those things. And we do have to run a business. And that comes with, payment plans or contracts or rules that you agree to and all that kind of stuff. But also, our clients are human, we are human, and we need to allow space for the messiness and the chaos.
I was aggressively nodding along, listening to everything that Gemma had to say, because I just agree so much. And in a world where we talk so much about contracts and boundaries and setting the expectation and all those things, I do think all of that is important. I think it's very important to have, for example, a contract that clearly outlines what happens if a client ghosts you, what happens if they need to reschedule, all of those things. And also, it's your business. You make the rules, so you get to break the rules. I have had many a situation like the one that Gemma shared with us where clients have needed to pause or cancel or whatever for various reasons. And I had a contract that would back me up in saying, well, sorry, that's not going to work, or you need to pay me anyway, or whatever. But I can tell you 10 times out of 10, giving them some grace and being flexible with them and understanding served me and them so much better in the long run. So yes, I think boundaries are important. And to Gemma's point, I think that it's important that we be careful that they don't get in the way of treating our clients and ourselves like a real human being and giving people grace and taking really good care of them, because that is what's going to grow our business in the long run. So if you remember from the intro, I said there was a really interesting common thread that all 4 of these entrepreneurs that kind of flowed through all 4 of these pieces of advice about most unconventional marketing tactics. And this was not at all something I was expecting whenever I first started to put together this episode. But if you were paying close enough attention, you will have noticed that all of these really come down to showing up as your real self in your marketing. So Arielle, you could tell just by the way she was speaking, is just a very direct and to the point person. And so marketing her business in that way works for her because it attracts people who value that. Abigail talked about politics and personal beliefs and values and being upfront about those, and she is attracting people whose values align with her and who trust her more because of that. Janae talked about singing and being a performer and being fun and silly and letting her true self show through. And she is successfully attracting people who also want that type of energy in their business, who want permission to show up that way themselves. And finally, Gemma talked about giving people more grace, being more flexible, and not being, as she said, bound by the boundaries that you've created for yourself in your business. And since she's made that shift, she has started attracting people who likewise are more understanding and who come back when they're ready and respect her time and put in the work and do all of the things that she wants them to do as her client, because she's not trying to fit herself or her clients into a box that was not made for them. I hope that this episode gives you permission to market your business your way. Don't take any of the 4 of these examples and say, okay, I need to start singing in my marketing, or I need to start out my LinkedIn post this way, or I need to have no rules about scheduling for my clients. That's not the point. The point here is that you need to figure out your way of marketing your business and really own that. Stop trying to put yourself in a box of, oh, well, this guru says I need to be on Pinterest, or this person says it's all about YouTube, or I need to film a talking head reel every single day. We run our own businesses so that we can make the rules, and I cannot encourage you enough to take advantage of that. Make your own rules. Try out some things, see what doesn't work, see what works, and then do more of that. All of these entrepreneurs shared that they didn't really know if these things were going to work at the beginning, but they knew that what they had been doing didn't feel good or wasn't serving them. So if you are in a place where your marketing feels really sticky, I would encourage you to just think really hard about what is the most true to yourself and frankly, easy feeling way that you could market your business, and double down on that. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much to Arielle, Abigail, Janae, and Gemma for sharing so openly with us. I would love to connect on Instagram or Threads. Shoot me a DM. Let me know that you listened to the episode and tell me what's your favorite piece of unconventional marketing advice that really works for you. Thanks for tuning in to the 6-Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.